Welcome to video 31 of Gamer to Game Developer Series 1, and in this video we're going to implement options. So the type of options I'm talking about are volume control and mouse sensitivity. So we've got 5 scripts involved, and we'll edit the multiplayer script, the cursor control script, and then we'll put the game together, build and run, and then discuss the set volume script, the game settings script, which will be heavily edited, and the apply mouse sensitivity script. Alright, so let's go to our very first step, which is to edit the multiplayer script. Before we edit the multiplayer script, let's go and add a new input. So go to Edit, Project Settings, Input, and we have a new input which will allow us to open up the options dialog. So I'll change the size of this list to 18. Alright, and we have a new item here, and I will change the name to settings. Alright, and it's not a mouse movement type, it's going to be a key or mouse button, so I'll change it to that, and the positive button is an O, so I'll just put O, the letter O. Okay, so that's it for defining our control. So we have here, when the player presses O, they'll get a settings dialog or an options dialog. Okay, so now let's go ahead and open up the multiplayer script and edit that. Alright, so inside our multiplayer script, we do need to add a few new summary comments. Well, I need to say that we're going to access the settings script, and yeah, that's probably all we'll be accessing. So I'll just say here, this script accesses the game settings script. So this script accesses the game settings script. Okay, now scroll down inside to the void client disconnect window function. There we go, void client disconnect window, and I want a new button in here. So our client disconnect window, you remember, is the one on the upper left of the screen when you're a player, that when you press the escape key you can then hit the disconnect button to disconnect from the game. So I want there a new button now that says options on it. So that's what we'll implement, and I'll place it, I'm thinking I'll place it just above the return to game button, so just here. So I'll enter in our new code, and this new code here, what it's going to do is, yes, make this button here, and it'll cause the options dialog to open up in the middle of the screen. So it's going to tell the relevant script that, you know, it's active, and we're also going to set the slider values in that. It'll make more sense when we get to that. So for now, let's just edit this script. Alright, I'll write allow the player to access the settings menu from the client's disconnect window if GUI layout dot button, and the name of this button is options, and GUI layout dot height, so the parameter I'll put here, dot height is going to be the same as the other buttons, which is 25. So if the player clicks on this button, then we'll access the game settings script. So first of all, we need to find the game manager. So game object g manager is equal to game object dot find, and this game object to find is the game manager. Game settings, I'll call it settings script, our variable here, is equal to gmanager.getComponent, and that component is of course, game settings. Alright, now that we've accessed it, there's something that I need to do, which is to set the volume slider to whatever the player's current volume is. And now that's in the game settings script, and we'll come to that. So I'll just write that settings script dot volume slider is equal to settings script dot volume. So that script is going to run another window, and inside that window there's going to be a volume slider. So it's a new GUI control that we haven't used before, and there's going to be a mouse sensitivity slider. Now you want the slider, so if you just launch the window without setting the slider value, you'll end up having slider potentially starting at 0, which doesn't look right. Of course, you want your slider, the knob, to be where your volume is, so the player understands, okay, that's my current volume, and that's, you know, how much I need to move it to change it relative to what it is right now. So anyway, settings script dot mouse slider is equal to settings script dot mouse sensitivity, and settings script dot show settings is equal to true. And then finally, show disconnect window, so that client disconnect window that we have open in the top left of the screen isn't going to show anymore, because now we're going to have a new window that appears in the middle of the screen. Okay, and I'll finally put here this GUI layout dot space 5. I'll just copy that and paste it in. Okay, and that's our code. That should be it for the multiplayer script. I'll just quickly check that there's no problems in Unity. Any obvious ones? Nope. Okay, so let's go to the next step. We're on to our second step, which is to edit the cursor control script. Okay, let's open up the cursor control script. And I'll put in here that this script accesses the game settings script. So this script accesses the game settings script. So what we're going to do here is just like the other things, when the options menu is open, the player can't do anything. So just like other stuff, like, you know, when the client disconnect window is open, same thing. Alright, so this script accesses the game settings script. And let's go down, and we have a new thing to add here. Well, we also have a new variable as well. So I should put here private game settings script. Okay, and then let's access it in the start function. So we have here settings script is equal to game manager dot get component setting script. Well, game settings, sorry. Okay, so that's it for the start function there. Next, we have a new item in the update function, 2 new little lines to add. So I'll put here and settings script dot show settings is false. Alright, and down here I'll have or settings script dot show settings is true. Okay, and that's it. I'll save it. Let's jump back to Unity, check for obvious errors. There are none, so let's go to the next step. We're on our third step, where we'll build and run the game and then discuss the set volume script. Alright, so we're gonna set up everything. So we have our set volume script over here, and I just need to attach that to the main camera. So I'll just hit the main camera and drop in the set volume script. Okay, and then we have our apply mouse sensitivity script over here, and I need to attach this to both players. So I'll do that. I'll go to player blue and drop in the apply mouse sensitivity script. And I'll do the same for player red. I'll again drop in apply mouse sensitivity script. And I'll just check that I've copied in the game settings script. Yes, I have, with all its detail. Okay, so I should be able to build and run. I'll set up a server here, and I'll go ahead and connect. Connect, anyone will do. I'll just give myself, oh, and there you go. There's the options button appearing right there. Okay, and oh, one thing I probably confused myself with is that I already had changed the client disconnect window isn't in the top left. It's in the middle of the screen basically, so I'd somehow forgotten that. Anyway, so if I click the options button, it'll take me to right here to the settings window, and here you'll see a volume slider and you'll see a mouse sensitivity slider. And when you've selected some settings, you just hit save settings, or you can cancel to not save them. Now you see here that there is an initial value to the volume and to the mouse sensitivity. So when we accessed it from that client disconnect window, you remember there that I was setting these slider values. So that's what I was doing there. I was capturing what they were, what the volume was, and then just setting the slider to that value. So I can change the volume to whatever. I can increase the mouse sensitivity, hit save settings, and yeah, my mouse sensitivity has gone up. Now I can also hit O. So I hit O there, and I also get the settings script. And yep, so I can see that my sliders are at the positions that I save them at. So let's say I move it and I hit cancel, it shouldn't save, so let me hit O, and yep, it's where it was before. So I'll just move it. I'll reduce my mouse sensitivity. I'll hit save settings. Okay, that's good. Now I'll hit the client open up the client disconnect window with the escape button, and I'll hit options, and yeah, okay, there it was. So our sliders are working correctly, and the values in them are working correctly. So mouse sensitivity now, it's really sensitive. Like I barely move my mouse and my screen moves a lot. Okay, so I'll change that back, that is too much, and I'll put it about there. That's good for me. Okay, so you've seen now what it looks like, so let's go ahead and look at the scripts that are behind it. So I'll just stop playing here, so disconnect and shut it down. Might as well shut down the server as well. And let me open up the set volume script. Okay. And it's really simple, this script. All it does is it just simply sets a volume to the audio listener. So I guess it really couldn't be much more simple than that. And basically what it does, you can see here in the update function that it's looking for something. It's looking for this boolean set volume to be true, and when it is, it'll access the audio listener. It'll just change this volume component. It'll assign the value volume, whatever has been given to it. And then that boolean is set to false, so this code doesn't keep executing. Well, this part here anyway, the assigning of the volume. Now this volume value comes from the game settings script, which is our next step. So I'll just move on immediately and discuss this one. We're on to our fourth step, which is to discuss the game settings script. Okay, let's go through the game settings script now. And it's become a lot more involved than before. Now previously we just had a water height value and that was it. Now it does a whole lot more. So it's controlling the volume that the player has and their mouse sensitivity. Well, allowing the player to choose mouse sensitivity. Alright, so let me go through the variables right here. We've got public bool show settings. This is used to show the window or not. So if it's false, the window won't show, the options window that we saw. We've got some quick references here, quite a few of them. And then we have some variables for our window. So window rect, here's the volume slider, mouse slider, they're floats. This is what you see. So those slider tabs that you see, this is the value in them. Alright, then we have our float volume, so the actual volume that's held in the script. We have a max volume, a minimum volume, so this affects the slider's minimum and maximum values. And we have the same thing for mouse sensitivity, so we have a float to hold the mouse sensitivity, and then we have a max mouse sensitivity and a minimum one as well, and these affect this upper and lower bounds of the slider, the mouse sensitivity slider. And then we have some more variables for our window, so the window height and width, and you can see here control height, label width, and a GUI style as well. So in our start function, we first of all access the player prefs, so we save our volume, so whatever volume and mouse sensitivity we pick and save, they get saved to player prefs. Now of course the very first time the game runs, there won't be anything in player prefs, so here it'll be if volume is 0, which it will be if it's the first time, then just set volume to a default 0.5. okay, and then after that we're going to access the set volume script, which is on the main camera as you just saw, and tell it to assign that volume value to the audio listener. So that's what it's doing here. Then the next thing we do is retrieve the mouse sensitivity from player prefs, and once again if it's 0, then assign a value of 10, which for me seems pretty good, but it depends on the player and their mouse itself on how well that works. Okay, once it does that, it accesses the spawn manager, and well, it sets up all these quick references here, and we define that GUI style, plain style. Alright, so now let's go to the update function. Now where we have the player hit their settings button, so O, and so long as the cursor is locked, then what we do is we set the volume slider value to be equal to the current volume. And we do the same thing for the mouse slider, and then we set show settings to true, and you're going to see that this is needed to show that options window. So if the player presses the settings button while the cursor is unlocked, so that means they're looking at some menu at the moment, then what will happen is that show settings will be set to false. So that way if the player has that options menu open, it'll just simply hide that menu. Okay, then let's say if the player has their presses the escape key, then once again show settings would be set to false. They'd escape out of that menu. Alright, so let's have a look at the settings window function itself. So we have here GUI layout.begin horizontal. We have here a label called volume, and then right after the volume horizontally is the volume slider, and you can see here's that volume slider variable. This is what gets set by moving the slider, and here are the minimum and maximum bounds. Okay, and then we just end the horizontal and repeat the same thing for the mouse sensitivity slider. Then we have that save settings button, which you remember, if the player presses it, then player prefs gets the volume value, and the volume script will be told to assign that volume value, and the mouse sensitivity will be saved to player prefs. Now once we assign that to player prefs, after that of course we need to assign the mouse sensitivity to the player. Now what do we assign mouse sensitivity to? We assign it to the mouse look scripts. So there's a mouse look script on the player and on their camera head, you remember? So the one on the player controls their x-axis rotation, and the one on the camera head controls y-axis rotation. So we only want to attempt to find the player if they're currently in the game. So that's why I'm checking here that they're not destroyed and that they are currently on a team. And if that's the case, then let's go ahead and access the mouse look scripts on that player. And we have to find that player, so we find them using their network ID, and it's unique to this player currently running the game. So once we find that, we will then access pretty much access their mouse look scripts and assign the mouse sensitivity. So I'm just here setting that mouse look for the x-axis, which is on the main player prefab, and then further down I'm setting the y sensitivity, which is the one for the camera head. Alright, so that's simple. And of course, after that process of saving those settings is done, set show setting, set this boolean to false so the window will hide itself. Now all of this code, just remember, is in this function settings window. Okay, so when the window is open, that this code is what's going to get executed. And we have a cancel button as well, and simply what I do is when I hit cancel, I'll just return the slider values back to what they should be based on the currently stored volume and mouse sensitivity. And the player won't see that happen, of course, because the show settings will just get set to false and the window will disappear, but it's just to make it easier. So if the player opens it the next time, it's already set. Okay, then in the onGUI function, that's where I actually show the window, and basically it's being displayed in the middle of the screen, and the window to display is that very well, the function to run in that window is that settings window function up above. Alright, so that's it for our game settings script. Let's move on to the next step where I'll quickly go over the apply mouse sensitivity. We're on to our last step, which is to discuss the apply mouse sensitivity script. Okay, let's open up the apply mouse sensitivity script, and I'll just quickly go through it. So this script, it only runs once basically, just on the start function, and its purpose is just simply to retrieve the mouse sensitivity value in the game settings script and then just apply it to the player like the first time when they spawn. So the game settings script is holding those mouse sensitivity values, and this script is simply just about getting those values and applying them. So you can see it doing that right here. Here it accesses the settings script, and here it's just simply accessing like the mouse look script on the player and then assigning that mouse sensitivity, and it does that to the camera head as well. Alright, so that is it. That was a really quick explanation actually. Okay, so that's it for this video. We've gone through and added options to our game, so our player can now change the volume and they can also change their mouse sensitivity. Now the next video we will do quite a few things. So we'll do things, it's pretty much we'll be finishing up for series 1, and in that video we'll have things like, we'll do like light mapping and adding lens flare, so pretty easy things. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.